my lovely baby greens. I'm Kai, your garden goblin, and today I'm going to show you how to make a terrarium for cacti out of a glass jar. Here I have a glass jar that I found in a thrift store. It cost me about €4 and it's just right for what we have planned. It has some cute decorations here at the front, but they're not really important. Important is that you can see here right through the glass so that you can see the cacti that we're planting. We're going to plant these 3 baby cacti and I'm going to show you how. Let's get started. For the terrarium you can use any glass container where your cacti can fit in as long as you can see through, except for glass containers that are closed at the top because cacti need a steady airflow. If the air cannot flow in the terrarium, if you close the top, then the water inside the substrate cannot leave, it cannot evaporate. And if the water does not properly evaporate from the substrate, your cacti can actually rot. And that is not what you want. Best would be actually a terrarium that is flat and has a very wide opening. So my glass container is not perfect, but it will be good enough for these tiny ones. But before we start planting, we need to prepare the container first, of course. Instead of just filling it up with substrate, we will create a false bottom at the very bottom of the container first. This false bottom serves as a drainage for the substrate because as you can see, this glass container does not have a hole where the water could be drained from the soil if you say accidentally overwater your cacti. So we create a false bottom to take care of that problem. For the false bottom you need gravel. Any kind of gravel works. I have here lava mulch. You can use normal river gravel. Just make sure the gravel isn't too fine so that you get nice open spaces in which the water can be collected, and it is not too big so they don't take up so much space in your small container. What you basically do is you fill up the container about 2 centimeters high with your pebbles and try to even it out at the bottom so that you have a nice bottom for drainage. Now that we have our false bottom finished, we need a barrier to prevent the substrate from getting into the false bottom. And for that you can use any kind of fine meshed material like a cloth or a fly mesh, or a bug mesh you put in your window. I use tomato fleece or tomato cloth, which is usually used to protect tomato plants from bugs and from weed growth. The only important thing about this is that it is not compostable. Now you cut it just roughly a little bit bigger than the size of your container, and then basically just put it over the false bottom. There you have it. Just put it over, make sure it's covering your false bottom just fine, and that's it. Now we just need to prepare the substrate for the cacti. You can of course use prepared cacti substrate or succulent substrate that already has a nice draining ability, but I'll show you how to mix your own. First you need a basic soil that can be planting soil or vegetable soil, or I use coconut fiber. Coconut fiber often comes in these tiny biscuits that are pretty hard, but what you do is you fill them up with water, let them get soaked, and then they get nice and light and fluffy and are already pretty good to go. But for our cacti we will mix that with a few more ingredients to make it even better drainable. But in this case, first we start with water. You can use any kind of water, of course, as long as it does not have chlorine or any other cleaning chemicals in it. Best would be rainwater. I use simple German tap water because that is clean and nice already. The next ingredient is sand and then gravel. You can use any kind of sand again, but the coarser the sand, the better. Big grains will help with drainage and will prevent the soil from clumping. The same goes for the gravel. Not too fine, of course, not too big too, but good enough so that the soil in the end will not clump when it gets wet. Now that the coconut fiber has absorbed all of the water, it has become 3 times bigger than before, and it has become nice and fluffy and is already a nice soil for any kind of planting plants you might be having. We're going to mix this now with sand. 2 times soil, 1 time sand, approximately. Best is to just, see how well it goes. Make sure it gets a nice coarse consistency, and if you press it together it does not clump. The same goes for the pebbles. 4 handfuls of pebbles are enough for this little box. But again, it's best to just test it out. See how well your gravel mixes with your substrate. If in the end you get a substrate that is nice and coarse and does not clump when you press it together, then you have found the perfect mixture. Now that our substrate is finished, we are going to fill it into the glass container. When you fill the substrate into the glass container, you need to make sure that you calculate enough room to cover the roots of your cacti, so it's just firmly planted in there. In this case, it's about 5 centimeters. What you do is you just take handfuls of it and fill it in. Don't compact, don't press down, just lightly move around the substrate until it is evenly spread all inside in the right height, and then you can start planting. Now, when you decide to plant your cacti, make sure to wear gloves because they are prickly boys. Also, as you look into your jar, make sure you plant them far enough away from each other so as they grow in, you don't have to repot them too soon. I mean, you will repot them eventually because they can grow quite some sizes, but that has time. And if you plan the spots of where you plant them, well, you won't have to repot them all too soon. When your cactus isn't slipping as easily out of the pot, what you can do is you can squeeze the pot around the soil, around the roots, and eventually it will slip out. Don't just pull on the cactus because you could rip the cactus off its roots and then it dies. Loosen the soil around the roots a little bit. Don't rip or pull, just loosen it up so that the roots can grow nicely in its new spot. In order to plant your cactus, you simply make a hole with your fingers in the substrate and press the cactus in. Make sure to firmly press the substrate around the cactus so that it is held well in its spot. If you have difficulties pushing the substrate into any empty spots, you can use a tool like a spoon, or I used my scissors, not the best kind of tools, but it works too. If you get a little bit of substrate on your cactus by accident, that's not a problem either. Later on you can just take a drinking straw and gently blow any kind of dirt off your cactus. Now that the cacti are planted, you only need to water them. The best way to do that is to get yourself such a mister, because cacti don't need much water anyways, and if you pour the water directly onto the soil, you risk again compacting the soil, and that is what we don't want. all you gotta do is take the mister, spritz a few spritzes of water until the soil is damp on the top. It doesn't need much more, and you repeat that once every week, and your cacti are already happy. And that basically is it. If you liked this video, if you found it a little bit useful, maybe click the like button so that I know that I did well. If you have any further questions or want me to cover any other topics in my videos, leave a comment down in the comment section below so that I get ideas for next videos. If you got inspired by my video and made your own terrarium for cacti now, send me pictures of it via Twitter. I'll leave my Twitter handle down in the description box. And also, I will probably replant 2 of the cacti very soon, because after I did this I noticed that the space is a little narrow inside. So if you want to see that video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. Until then, I wish you a great day and have a lot of fun with your green friends. Bye bye!